People must be bringing up the problem of suffering and why is there evil in the world. How do you handle that one? That's a big pitch that they'll throw at you.
Well, I tell them I look in the mirror every morning and I see a person who's capable of saying things and doing things that I can't believe I could have said or did. Mm-hmm. We all have this problem of the inclination to evil and pride. Mm-hmm. And suffering, it seems to me, is the medicine that God has given us to deal with pride and with human weakness and so on. Where would I be if I didn't suffer? What kind of a guy would I be? Right. I mean, most of the people that I meet in life who are really nice, like Father Andrew, who are really kind and empathetic and sweet and dear, have suffered a lot. I don't always know how they've suffered, but I almost always can spot this in a person and so on, Yes. And when you talk to these people who are the nicest people you ever met, you find out how they've suffered. In some cases, they've given up a lot, they've sacrificed a great deal in their lives and all that. But in other cases, it's just a disease or loss of family members or catastrophes and so on in their lives. Yeah. Why is this? Suffering has a way of ennobling us.
Right.
People suffer in school, they take the exams and they sweat it out and so on to get a degree, and it ennobles them. And I was in a hijacking many years ago. Pan Am and so on, Palestinian terrorists and so on. They took our plane and I lost everything, my luggage, the notes I had taken in the summer, everything went down the tubes and so on, but my life was spared in this hijacking incident. I was on television afterwards, and they asked me, Professor Marks, what's going to happen? It was the first time this ever happened, all these hijackings. After that hijacking with my life that was saved, I was a nice guy for 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was a nice guy. And then after that, I was back to old Fred again. Mm-hmm. But that suffering that I went through, I had scraped up my hands and knees, and it was amazing what happened, and so it actually made me a nice guy for a while.
Uh-huh. It does. You know what, Fred, I think suffering makes us realize our humanity, our weakness, and St. Paul said, I glory in my weakness, that then the strength of Christ may dwell in me. And so it leads us to humility. That's what you were saying. I became a nice guy because I realized how I have to be grateful to God for what He gave me, right?
Right, and the question that people ask, of course, has not only to do with physical suffering, but it also has to do with sin. In other words, how could God create people who rape? How can God have created people who murder? In other words, create people who have such a capacity for evil, who act it out, and so on. And the answer to that is, if God had created marionettes, if He had created puppets that would automatically do His will, it wouldn't be an act of love.
It wouldn't be an
ounce of love. And there's no love from the puppet, right?
That's right.
I don't go to a puppet and say, will you love me?
Yeah, that's right. There wouldn't, if there was no freedom, Fred, there'd be no love in the entire world, because love must be freely chosen. I must choose to do good. So God is willing to tolerate a lot of evil just to receive the love of someone who freely tells Him, God, I love you. That's how precious it is, and I think everyone should realize how precious our love is to God, and never to despair. He's always waiting for us.
And He turns every ounce of evil to good, if people will allow it to happen.
That's right.
Out of the evil comes good, always.
Yeah, we're struggling against that original sin. These are the after effects. Even after baptism has restored us to God's grace, but still we carry, as St. Thomas Aquinas called it, the wounds of original sin, in malice, in our will, and, in intemperance, in our attitude toward pleasure and pain, and so on.